bullies are powerful temporarily, but rarely durable.
In this video, Tim Miller of the Bulwark talks to Pete Buttigieg, Mayor Pete, about Donald Dump Truck and the future of the Democratic Party. This is a great long conversation on the Bulwark, and Tim Miller has a great interview with Pete Buttigieg. That's an hour long. You can go and find that on the Bulwark. This is one of two short excerpts I've done. Why don't we watch it together? I'll have some opinions, and then I want to know what you think in the comments.
We're about to get to the Democrats next, but we've gone through the fact that we're disappearing people to a El Salvador gulag, that we're going after universities because of their politics, banning foreign students for coming to universities for reasons, just a horrific tax and spending bill that makes no sense. Like what? And you know, I've listened to all your podcasts recently, and you give compelling reactions to all of those things on the merits. Like, what has pissed you off the most? Like, what has gotten Pete's blood pressure up the most out of the last 4 months?
Where do we begin? I mean, I think the part of what is most infuriating is the extent of the insult to the American people. It's not just policies that are going to hurt people. It's insulting people's intelligence. It's insulting the working voter who knows damn well that if you make these changes to Medicaid, millions of deserving people are going to lose their healthcare coverage. It's the insult to the American taxpayer with the idea that we're all supposed to pay hundreds or tens of millions of dollars to upgrade a jumbo jet handed over by a foreign government for the president to use that probably won't even be ready until his last year and then would immediately go to his presidential library. There's a brazenness to this that is insulting. And some of it's insulting by design, like to get us just so whipped up that we're kind of losing our minds and we can't be clear-headed about a strategy to defeat it. But something about just how little he must think of the American people, and in particular the supporters who he goes to for money and for votes all the time. He just doesn't deserve them. He doesn't deserve the loyalty of any of the people who trusted him with their vote. And I think that's the most hurtful thing. Yeah, the policies are bad, conduct is bad, but it's that bad faith that is the worst thing of all. And I think that's one of the reasons why so many people who are conservatives are as disturbed by him as the rest of us. It's just that those of them who are in Congress can't seem to bring themselves to say anything because they're afraid.
Why do you think those people are stuck with him? We're going to get esoteric now, because I was listening to, in one of your interviews recently, you said these movements, you're talking about MAGA, doesn't come up in a country where things are going fine. And that sounds nice. Like that sounds right. That maybe that the folks that have turned to him because they went through real struggles and they're just grasping around for any solution, even somebody that doesn't give a fuck about them. But then, like, the more I think about it, I'm like, is that actually true? Because, like, over the last half century, we've done better than Western Europe. They don't have a Trump. You know, really, who has had it the hardest in this country?
Well, have we, though, right? Like, what? Growth-wise, we have, but like, look at the inequality, right? Like, anytime you see this level of inequality, like, usually that's the beginning of the end for a republic if it happens in a democratic country. And the truth is, while I would like to think that my party has better policies to deal with inequality and is more concerned about it, the reality is it has gotten worse on the watch of Republican and Democratic administrations in a way that I think motivates, maybe not justifies, but motivates an attitude that says, like, burn the house down. Like, there's this cynicism, right? Now that there's part of it that I think deserves to be taken seriously. There's another part of it that is just the way our relationship to reality and information has changed, right? The fact that we're not getting information mostly from sources that consult both sides and talk about what they have to say and subject everything they print or repeat to editorial standards, right? We're just not in that world as much. I think that's really made a big difference. You put those things together and it's a recipe for kind of cynicism. But it's one thing to get mad and say, all right, let's burn the house down. It's another to actually be around when that happens. And I think what we're seeing is a lot of people getting hurt by it. They'll be hurt by it more. Although, there's been a show of political savvy by the Republicans setting some of these bombs to go off in 2029, which means they know that policy is going to hurt a lot of people, and they don't want politically it to happen before the election, right? This is the kind of thing that I think translates that general frustration into a terrible consequence.
Yeah.
God, setting that fuse on it for short-term gain so that the explosion happens on somebody else's watch, that is so insidious. It's another example of how, no matter how imperfect the Democratic Party is, and trust me, I agree that it's wildly imperfect. You got half of our government is trying to govern, and the other half of the government is just rip and run.
I don't necessarily think that's wrong, but here's what's unsatisfying about it, right? Is that if you look at there's a New York Times survey, like if you look at the last 3 elections in a trend, it's only the counties with like the smallest proportion of college grads have turned more Democrat. It's mostly suburban counties where I grew up, suburban Denver, suburban Atlanta, that have moved Democrat each of the last 3 elections. In 2/3 of the least educated counties, it's been the Republicans that steadily grew their vote share in each of the last 3 elections. And so if you're saying that the answer is that, like, well, it's just been this widening inequality gap that has turned these folks to Trump, the Republicans aren't even really offering any
of course not.
to that, right? So, like, why? So there's got to be something.
But this is
else.
what they do, right?
Cultural. It can't just be money.
So I agree on the cultural part, but just to close the loop on the money part, one thing they're very good at is taking a problem, seeing it get worse, and using it, right? The more inequality there is, the better for somebody like Trump. Just like, the worse things are at the border, the better for somebody like Trump, politically, right? So we've seen that pattern again and again.
And of course, now that they have a right-wing media machine, even the press secretary, they harp on it again and again with half-truths and outright lies. But they highlight, border crossings are down without talking at all about the context of that or the way in which that's happening.
But I agree on the culture part too. Look, I mean, there's, Democrats have created this impression, I think partly because of the way we feel and talk about Trump, have created this impression that translates into the way we feel and talk about people who supported him. And that's the thing that I think really is a cultural struggle in our party. There's this sense of condescension. I mean, if I hear one more time, like a well-off liberal doctor or lawyer saying, that quote unquote, these folks are voting against their economic interests, I just wonder whether they ever contemplated the fact that somebody could turn around and say, so are you. There's a condescension that is imputed to Democrats that I think we really need to deal with. So much of politics is not just how you make people feel, but how you make people feel about themselves. And so much of what they think of you comes down to what they think you think of them. And largely because of our very justified horror at the abuses of Donald Trump as a candidate and as a president, we've said and done things that make voters feel like we're talking about them when we're talking about him.
This is a conundrum, right? Like you said, like it is an easy thing to say, right? That Democrats should not be condescending when talking about folks that voted for Trump. And I get that it's like the right thing to do, right? In the sense of, like, if you're in 4th grade, that's what your teacher would tell you. Like, you have to be nice to your fellow classmates that made a really dumb decision. And that we try to teach our kids that. And yet, like, they've nominated the Republicans, like, one of the stupidest, most cruel, most, like, totally morally indefensible Americans for president 3 straight times. Like, even after he's committed obvious crimes, even after he's, like, insulted people, and he's so mean. It's like he's condescending and mean to people, the way he talks about Baltimore or whatever. The media, you just name the list of people that he talks about, and he just makes stupid nicknames up about people. So the Democrats have to be nice to the people that elected, like, the stupid, cruel Biff from Back to the Future. And I guess they don't have to do the same.
The way I'd put it is that we need to call out to what's best in people, because we already, the lane for calling out to what's worst in people is already taken. First of all, it's not for us. And secondly, we're never going to be as good at it as he is. Right. So yeah, I mean, he's going to, like, even the insulting and cruelty on his side is done in a way that I think a lot of people feel like, well, they can sort of get in on it, which is also a dynamic that takes me back to fourth grade or maybe seventh grade. That, one way to not be the object of insults is to side with whoever's throwing the insults around. I mean, this is like really classic schoolyard stuff, right?
Yeah.
That we're being thrown back into. But I also think,
wouldn't it have been satisfying though for somebody just to punch the fucking bully in the face in fourth grade? Like, isn't that after a while, after many years? That's one thing if they're mean on the playground for like one day, but then it's third grade they're mean, fourth grade they're mean, fifth grade they're mean, sixth grade they're mean, seventh grade they're mean, eighth grade they get elected class president, ninth grade, don't you want somebody to fucking clock him in the face?
So look, bullies are powerful temporarily, but rarely durable, right? Like, yeah, sooner or later that catches up to them. And I think we will see that, like, this relationship that Trump has built with his people is not the kind of thing that builds a lasting political movement. I think another thing my side needs to be thinking about is when he exits the political scene, which one way or the other is going to happen, he will not be active in American politics 15 years from now. Like, what would we want to see?
Baby. Fingers crossed.
And then, like, figure out how to bring that a little closer into the near future.
Barron is going to be the main figure 15 years from now. He'll be, you were 29 when you won the mayor's race, right? How old will Barron be in 15 years? 34? Watch out.
I hope that Mayor Pete is right. And I tend to feel more like Tim Miller, frankly. Like, this idea, this confidence that Pete Buttigieg and a lot of the politicians in the Democratic Party right now, sure, it's tough right now, but it's not going to be like this forever. That's what they're actively working on. They're working on dismantling in a very real way the checks and balances of our democracy so that it will not be a democracy anymore. And I find that really terrifying. And they're making progress, and sure, they're hitting some speed bumps, and judges are saying no. But this really confident, calm attitude from Buttigieg, and we should be thinking about what's next and looking at the next presidential election. Man, I hope so. Man, I hope so. Like Tim Miller did, crossing my fingers, but it feels dire. So I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments. Are you vibing with Tim Miller like I am, or do you have that sublime confidence that Pete Buttigieg exhibits here at the end? And what about the other stuff that they're talking about? Would you vote for Pete Buttigieg for president? I'd have to look at what my choices are, but I'm a big fan. I think he's very intelligent and he's very sharp. And I like the things that Pete says. Again, presuming that we have a return to normalcy, which, I mean, it feels like they've broken so much that that's going to be a lot of work and it won't just happen. Let me know what you think in the comments.